Alexander Petrovich, a man in his early 50s with a thoughtful demeanor and subtly etched lines around his kind eyes, stood at the window of his spacious apartment overlooking a tranquil, sun-drenched Moscow courtyard. The reflection staring back at him from the polished glass appeared weary, a little extinguished even under the bright, unrelenting summer sun, mirroring the turmoil brewing within. He had always taken immense pride in his family, Elena, his wife and steadfast companion of 25 years, and Sophia, his daughter, his source of unwavering pride, profound joy, and profound hope for the future. Lately, however, a subtle, growing unease had begun to overshadow that long-held, cherished pride. Alexander was an old-fashioned man at heart, inherently honorable and fundamentally principled, raised in humble beginnings where hard work and unwavering honesty stood as paramount virtues, almost religious tenets. He'd risen from a simple, unassuming engineer with a humble background to the owner of a modestly successful construction company, a testament to his sheer grit. Every stone laid in his path, every obstacle overcome, was due to sheer perseverance, relentless hard work, and unyielding dedication to his craft. He'd always diligently strived to give his family the very best life could offer, perhaps even to a fault, spoiling them with an abundance of heartfelt gifts and gestures. Elena had never worked, instead dedicating herself solely to the home, creating a warm domestic sanctuary, and rearing Sophia with devoted attention. His daughter, cocooned in tender care, unwavering attention, and material comfort, grew up perhaps a little spoiled yet undeniably charming, and with a rather capricious nature, but Alexander had consistently turned a blind eye, attributing it all to youth and the inherent essence of her headstrong, independent character. The following day, they were scheduled to depart for a seaside retreat in a quaint, picturesque Italian town where Alexander maintained a beautiful villa, a haven from the hustle and bustle of the city. The trip had been meticulously planned with loving care, a vacation he had imagined for months with eager anticipation, and he eagerly anticipated the prospect of spending uninterrupted quality moments with his family, taking a step back from the relentless demands of his business, and allowing himself the simple pleasure of enjoying life's quieter moments. However, in recent moments, a noticeable and troubling shift had occurred within their family dynamic, emanating an unnatural coldness. An almost palpable shadow, heavy with unspoken words and unacknowledged tensions, had fallen between him and Elena. Conversations had turned stilted, formal, and increasingly infrequent, and furtive glances struggled to meet, avoiding any honest engagement. Sophia, on the other hand, had distanced herself almost entirely, almost completely isolating herself within her own social bubble. She had chose to spend more and more of her precious free time in the frivolous company of her shallow friends, actively avoiding any substantial interaction with her weary father, and often making thinly veiled excuses. The roots of this estrangement were still elusive, puzzling, and deeply unsettling, contributing to Alexander's growing unease and deep-seated anxiety about the future of his family. He sensed a brewing storm, a dark, ominous undercurrent of discontent swirling ominously within his once harmonious family unit, threatening to shatter its foundations. As evening descended, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange, vibrant pink, and regal purple, the shrill ring of the telephone shattered the encroaching, heavy silence of the apartment. It was Sophia, her voice exuding an almost excessive cheerfulness, a forced gaiety and manic enthusiasm that settled uneasily on Alexander's discerning ears, raising his suspicions. He picked it up, his heart pounding with trepidation, and listened intently to what she had to say. "Dad, hi. Listen, I've been thinking, well, to be honest, I've decided not to come with you guys to the sea. I hope you aren't too disappointed." Alexander was momentarily speechless, his mind struggling to process the entirely unexpected, shocking declaration, his brow furrowing deeply in confusion. He could not wrap his head around it, as his carefully laid plans began to unravel before his disbelieving eyes. "Not come? Why, Sophia? We have everything meticulously planned, all prepared with your preferences keenly in mind." "Oh, Dad, I really don't want to. Honestly, the girls here have offered to go to another amazing place for vacation. It'll be way more fun, so much better and more exciting, I promise." "Sophia, what about me? I hoped that we could spend some quality time together, as a family, reconnecting and building lasting memories. Come on, Dad, don't get offended and sad. I'm an adult now, not a little child anymore, and I have the right to decide how I want to use my precious time off. I have freedom to do whatever I want, you know. A chilling sense of foreboding gripped Alexander's heart, sending a shiver down his spine and making his blood run cold. Something was deeply, terribly wrong far down below the surface. His desperate attempts to reason with his headstrong daughter proved futile in the end, her resolve implacable, and her excuses increasingly hollow. Feeling a piercing sense of bitter betrayal, and a gnawing sense of profound isolation that cut through his remaining happiness like a shard of ice, Alexander finally yielded reluctantly, the considerable weight of her insensitive, selfish words bearing down on him heavily, crushing his spirit. The much-anticipated trip, once envisioned as a joyful escape, a respite from the ordinary, transformed into a bleak trial, a relentless series of agonizing moments filled with disappointment and unspoken grief. Elena adopted an icy demeanor, remaining detached from Alexander's earnest attempts at connection, and deliberately burying herself in her phone, becoming increasingly lost in a superficial digital world of fleeting images and shallow interactions. Alexander felt as an interloper among his own immediate family, a stranger in his own home. The unnerving feeling of isolation threatened to consume him entirely from the inside out, leaving him hollow and emotionally vulnerable. He dwelled on their failing relationship with growing anguish, and struggled to cope with the silent, suffocating tension that permeated the air. One evening, unable to withstand the simmering, unbearable tension any longer, he sought to elicit long-awaited answers from his increasingly distant and enigmatic wife, driven by a desperate need for truth. "Elena, what is going on? What has made you behave this way towards me lately, with such visible coldness and disdain?" Elena was silent for what seemed to be an eternity, a prolonged, uncomfortable pause that stretched on endlessly, hanging heavy in the pregnant air like a thick, impenetrable fog. Then, with a long-drawn, weary sigh, heavy with unspoken emotion and suppressed turmoil, she finally said, "Alexander, there is something that I need to tell you, something that you deserve to know. Something very important that will undoubtedly change everything." She hesitated, steeling herself for what was to come, preparing to finally unleash the painful truth. She confessed to a torrid affair with shocking candor, in a matter-of-fact way, seemingly devoid of any remorse or guilt, with a seemingly trustworthy lifelong family friend named Sergei, a man they had both welcomed and cherished over the years. It had been unfolding clandestinely for some months behind his back since things had started to take a dark, unfortunate turn in their marriage. A difficult and lonely time when Alexander had been deeply entrenched in his demanding business operations, working tirelessly to provide for them, leaving her feeling neglected, unseen, and emotionally starved. Sergei was always attentive, charming, and always available, and he knew how to command attention in any social situation, charming her every step of the way, and he was remarkably understanding of her needs and desires, fulfilling her needs with lavish gifts. Elena confessed that she had foolishly fallen in love with Sergei's seductive charm, his easygoing nature, and his empty promises, and revealed that she harbored no remaining intimate feelings for Alexander, that the flame of their love had long since flickered and died. She took a deep breath and fell silent, awaiting his reaction with trepidation. In that devastating moment, Alexander's whole carefully constructed world imploded spectacularly, shattering into a million irreparable pieces before his disbelieving eyes, and he reeled under each harsh, unforgiving word that cut like a knife to the core. It seemed utterly impossible, a grotesque nightmare, that the woman he had lovingly consecrated his life to, the mother of his child, had so cruelly betrayed him, shattering their vows and poisoning the sacred bond of their marriage. Vivid memories flashed uncontrollably through Alexander's racing mind, now haunting specters of past happiness and shared love, all tragically tainted with the grim veneer of hypocrisy and hidden deceit. He desperately tried to maintain his composure, fighting to keep his emotions in check and to not allow himself to completely break down. "And Sophia? Does she know all of this awful, heartbreaking treachery?" Alexander asked, his voice barely above a choked whisper, as a crushing, unbearable weight bore relentlessly down on his already shattered, bleeding heart, threatening to completely overwhelm him. Elena confirmed solemnly and honestly, her eyes meeting his with an unsettling mixture of defiance and regret. Yes, she does know absolutely everything, and she has been actively supporting me throughout this whole ordeal and crisis, offering her unwavering support. The solid ground beneath Alexander seemed to shift treacherously, threatening to swallow him whole, casting him into an abyss of despair and profound disillusionment. His cherished loved one, Sophia, was apparently on the same treacherous side as his deceitful wife, complicit in their betrayal and undermining his trust. Cold reality set in with brutal force. Alexander remembered Sophia's unexpected refusal to go on the anticipated trip, strategically canceling her plans, along with her recent unusually distant behavior, becoming increasingly withdrawn and secretive. Suddenly, everything chillingly began to fit together seamlessly like puzzle pieces in a twisted, horrifying picture, revealing a sinister plot he'd been ignorant of. A series of cold, hard truths were painfully revealed, exposing a tapestry of lies and duplicity. Alexander spent the agonizing next days in a state of profound shock, utter despair, disbelief, and profound grief, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the betrayal. He could not eat, nor could he find solace in sleep, tossing and turning through sleepless nights. His troubled thoughts were fixated, trapped in a torturous cycle of relentless anger and a desperate craving for answers about the betrayal perpetrated by those closest to him, his family. He felt utterly crushed, completely abandoned, and utterly alone amidst the desolation that had engulfed his life, adrift in a sea of sorrow. The pain cut deep from head to toe, leaving him raw and wounded in every way imaginable. After they ventured back to Moscow, a city that felt alien, unfriendly, and cold, devoid of affection or familiarity, Alexander immediately took definitive, decisive steps to thoroughly investigate what had been insidiously taking place clandestinely behind his trusting back, unraveling the web of deceit woven around him. Summoning his inner reserve of strength, his resolve hardened by betrayal, Alexander hired a highly discreet, top-notch private investigator, known for her unwavering discretion, impeccable judgment, and unwavering tenacity, to meticulously watch Elena and Sophia discreetly and diligently, uncovering their hidden actions. Shortly thereafter, he was presented with damning photographic and video evidence that shattered his wounded heart all over again, twisting the knife even deeper, exposing a reality far darker than he had imagined possible. The graphic pictures depicted Sophia brazenly having a fun time in a lavish, exclusive nightclub known for its debauchery and excess, frivolously spending Alexander's hard-earned money without a single second thought for nor consideration to the consequences of her selfish actions, reveling in her privileged lifestyle. Luxurious items and copious amounts of expensive champagne were the norm for her every lavish night out, a symbol of her unearned wealth and reckless spending. Other incriminating photos showed Elena and Sergei engaged in passionate kissing, tender embracing, and intimate hugging in secret rendezvous, confirming their illicit love affair. He fought desperately to cope with the overwhelming sense of betrayal, struggling to regain control of his emotions. Moreover, the relentless investigator revealed that Sophia had not only adamantly refused the planned trip with her own unsuspecting father, showing complete disregard for his feelings, but had also actively and gleefully persuaded her manipulative mother, egging her on, to travel with her and Sergei for their secret escapade, enabling their scandalous affair. They had all unapologetically enjoyed a carefree, lavish lifestyle at Alexander's immense expense, laughing at his expense, showing not a single shred of genuine remorse, guilt, or even basic human decency for their shameless, repugnant actions. An all-consuming and blinding fury seized Alexander, engulfing him in a raging inferno of righteous anger. His thoughts were consumed and fueled by an all-encompassing rage, a burning desire for justice. He made a pivotal and life-altering decision in that moment, a vow to reclaim what was rightfully his. That they would never again shamelessly exploit him for their own shallow, selfish gain, that they would face the consequences of their actions. He shall take back everything he generously and wholeheartedly gave them over the years, including the luxurious lifestyle he had provided, and leave them with absolutely nothing to show for their treachery, stripped bare of their ill-gotten comfort and complacency. With a newfound purpose, his gaze focused on a clear and specific goal, and a renewed sense of determination, Alexander turned course to take decisive and impactful action with a clear and unwavering head, fueled by a commitment to reclaim what was rightfully his. He meticulously gathered a team of the sharpest, most experienced, and ruthless legal counsel in the city, known for their aggressive tactics and unwavering commitment to their clients, to begin the arduous, complex legal proceedings to bring an unceremonious end to his once sacred marriage. Elena was stunned into surprised silence, utterly caught off guard and blindsided by his unwavering resolve and the unexpected turn of events, failing to grasp the gravity of the situation. Alexander vehemently demanded a complete and equitable division of all assets and property, with the ultimate primary goal being to meticulously strip her of all she had unjustly gained during their entire 25-year marriage, meticulously dismantling their shared life together. He was determined to fight back with unwavering resolve and leave her with nothing. He ruthlessly revoked all previous legal authority and permissions that had been previously hastily granted to Elena, meticulously ensuring that she could no longer have any future access or control over his business expenses, financial holdings, or even their shared investments, severing her access to his wealth. He coldly and abruptly closed her access to his plush, luxurious office at the company, changing the locks and permanently locking her out, symbolizing the end of her influence in his life. One by one, all of his assets were strategically and systematically transferred into protected, impenetrable accounts, carefully shielded from her reach and absolute control, safeguarding his wealth. Sophia, who had never known anything other than a life of carefree spending, unbridled indulgence, and pampered comfort, never fully realized the gravity or the true magnitude of what was strategically happening surreptitiously behind the scenes, foolishly assuming her privileged existence would continue indefinitely. But as soon as she received a stark, unsettling notification from the bank about the definitive denial of a particularly frivolous and extravagant transaction, she became livid with unbridled outrage, anger, and disbelief, realizing her security was threatened. She frantically reached out to her father over the phone, begging and pleading, but all frantic, tearful calls went unanswered, and the desperate messages were ignored, as if he was a ghost. She brazenly stormed into his corporate office, demanding answers, only to be swiftly and curtly forbidden from entering the premises by security, further fueling her rage and panic. In a desperate, last-ditch attempt to salvage the rapidly deteriorating situation, she stormed home, hoping to speak to him face-to-face, appealing to his emotions, but found absolutely no sympathy, compassion, or understanding. Alexander remained coldly detached, impassive, immovable, and resolute in his conviction, exhibiting a steely resolve that brooked no argument. He stated assertively, his voice devoid of emotion, that he could no longer see her as a daughter, nor would he offer her any future financial support of any kind, severing their bond completely. Sophia went completely ballistic, losing all control, unleashing a torrential downpour of venomous anger, bitter accusations, and wounded resentment at her stoic father, attacking his character and insulting his actions, showing no regard for his feelings. All legal disputes ultimately led to Alexander's triumphant success, resulting in a complete victory in his quest for justice and retribution. He decisively and ruthlessly divorced Elena, leaving her legally destitute, financially ruined, and without any safety net to cushion her fall, forcing her to face the consequences of her choices. Sophia was also left completely without the luxurious funds that had come to define her entire pampered and privileged life, and forced to work diligently, humbly, and unglamorously in order to simply survive in the harsh economic reality of Moscow, finally facing responsibility. Years had quietly gone swiftly by, leaving their indelible marks upon the evolving landscape of Alexander Petrovich's solitary life, etching lines of experience and wistful sadness on his face. Now with significantly grayer, thinner hair that belied his age, Alexander Petrovich lived in a state of simple, quiet, self-imposed isolation, distancing himself from the emotional complexities of relationships. He could no longer fully confide in any single person, unable to trust or be vulnerable, and actively shied away from any potential intimate relationships, haunted by the lingering specter of past betrayal, forever wary. He now steadfastly redirected his considerable efforts, attention, and unwavering dedication toward the increasingly demanding realm of his fulfilling work, finding solace and purpose in his professional endeavors, and generously supporting a wide range of charitable and philanthropic causes, giving back to the community. One quiet, unremarkable day, Elena unexpectedly made contact through a reluctant mutual acquaintance, initiating a line of communication that had remained dormant for many years. Desperate, humbled, and filled with contrition, she formally requested to meet him in person at his earliest convenience, expressing a profound need to apologize. After careful, deliberate contemplation and internal debate, wrestling with his conflicted emotions, Alexander reluctantly agreed to the deeply unsettling meeting, wanting to hear what she had to say. They convened at a small, unassuming cafe, tucked away and somewhat hidden in the heart of Moscow, where Elena tearfully recounted a sorrowful story detailing her unfortunate demise, downward spiral, and complete financial ruin at the cruel hands of the now absent Sergei, the man who had once seemed to offer her salvation, who had vanished without a trace, leaving her abandoned and destitute. She was ultimately alone, penniless, without any dependable support system, and completely without any feasible options, facing an uncertain future. Sophia, alas, had never truly found her way in the world despite her initial confidence and entitlement, wandering aimlessly through the complexities of life without any clear direction, purpose, or lasting sense of fulfillment. She seemed lost forever, forever scarred and jaded by her past mistakes. Elena offered a heartfelt, vulnerable apology, her voice choked with a torrent of tears and deep regret, her body trembling with emotion. It was undeniably a terrible, devastating mistake that irrevocably ruined our family forever, and for that, I am truly sorry, she painfully confessed, her words laced with remorse. Alexander listened intently, his typically expressive face unreadable, betraying no hint of emotion. In the end, he politely and coldly stated, his voice firm yet gentle, that he would not offer any direct assistance or intervention, leaving her situation unresolved. They had freely and consciously made their own ill-advised choices, and now each of them had to bravely and unflinchingly bear the devastating, crushing burden of their unfortunate repercussions and the irreversible damage that resulted. Alexander carried the heavy weight of his brutal actions, forever remembering.